Hey everyone, it's Corey from This and That, and today I am going to show you what you can do with a cheap cut of chicken and how you can cook it and preserve it. Stay tuned. So I went to Walmart yesterday and found this giant 10-pound bag of chicken leg quarters, and the first thing I could think of was that these would be perfect to roast and make some nice roast chicken for different meals that I could vacuum seal, and then the bones would be perfect for making some more chicken bone broth. So that's what I'm going to do today. I paid $3.66 for this giant bag. That's pretty much like free to me. So I'm going to cut this open, get the chicken into some bowls, and then I'm going to prep it for roasting in the oven. I found a recipe years ago that I've modified where I use some melted butter, I use some rosemary and garlic, I use some chicken stock, and I put this in the oven and I roast it for about 45 to 50 minutes. And then what I'll do is I'll take all the chicken off and I will use the bones for bone broth. So I'm excited to do that today and take you along on my adventure. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the bones, and the second part of the video will be showing how I use my roaster pan with all the bones and some vegetable scraps. A delicious bone broth that I will then pressure can in my pressure canner. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to preheat my oven to 425 to get this nice and hot. I've also prepared 3 pans if I need that many with some tin foil, because this makes a mess and it's just easier to clean my pans after when I'm done. Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Got 8 leg quarters out of that bag. So I was able to fit all of these on a couple of sheet pans with my tin foil, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to melt some butter, and I'm also going to make a little bit of chicken broth. This is the stuff, oops, wrong one. This is the stuff that I really like to use. It's a Rosemary Garlic Seasoning, and I usually put some of this into the butter and into the broth mixture, and then I also put some on top. And then what I do is I cook the chicken for about 15 to 20 minutes at 425, and then I lower it to 350 and cook them until they're done. You can use a meat thermometer to make sure that they are the correct temperature, because all chicken should be at least 165. So I'm going to cut up a couple of tablespoons of butter, and I'm going to just melt it a little bit into the microwave, and I'll add some of the seasoning, and then I'm going to do the same thing with some chicken broth. The chicken broth really just keeps the chicken nice and moist and just gives it a little extra flavor. Usually I only use a couple of tablespoons, but because there are so many, I'm going to use a little bit extra just so I have enough. We'll use a little over a half a stick of butter. Put this in the microwave so that way I can get this melted up. In the meantime, I'm going to get some water. This is unsalted butter. You can use salted if you'd like. We just try to watch the sodium content in our house. Okay, the butter is nice and melted. This is plenty good. Now what I'm going to do is I've got 1 cup of just plain water that I'm just going to heat up in the microwave, because the stuff that I use is this sodium-free chicken granulated bouillon. Now I make bone broth, but I tend to use those things for soups, stews, chicken pot pies, and this sort of stuff I use for things like making a roast. I'll use this if I want to flavor chicken that I'm pressure canning so that it's already got a broth flavor to it. And I used to use this a lot more than I do, but because I've been making the homemade bone broth, I use it less and less, but it does come in handy for some things. So I do use this. You can use any brand of, granulated chicken bouillon. This is another really good brand too, the Orrington Farms. I got it to compare to this one, but I actually like the Herbox better. But again, any type of chicken broth, chicken seasoning, you can use your homemade broth too, that works. So now that this is warm, so I just put that in for a minute. I'm gonna take 1 teaspoon of this, goes to 1 cup of water. Mix that up really good. Then what I'm going to do is I've got my butter here, and I've also got a brush. And I'm going to just put some of this into the butter. And then I'll also be putting some on top of the chicken. You can use as little or as much as you want of this. I probably altogether put in maybe a little over a tablespoon. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take a little chicken broth and put it in with each of the parts of the bird. Try to spread it out evenly between the 3 containers. And now I'm gonna come in with my butter. And this is what makes the skin golden brown and gives it some really nice flavor. Butter makes everything better. Isn't that what the Pioneer Woman says? And I totally agree. I'm just doing the top because the bottom has the chicken broth on the bottom, so just making sure I do all these really well. You can always go back. I think doing a little over a half a stick was a perfect amount for 8 legs, 8 quarters rather. And that's my oven telling me it's at 425, so that's perfect timing. It's a tiny bit of butter left, so I'm just gonna make sure I got every section of each of these chickens. And there's so many different ways to do this. You don't even need to do this. You could just put these right into your crock pot or into your roaster. I'm just adding some more seasoning here, like I talked about. And these are ready to go into the oven. Yum. So I'm gonna set my timer for about 15 minutes at this temperature, and then I'm going to lower it to 350. So the timer's just gone off, so I'm going to lower this down to 350. And it's telling me it's already done. And here's what we got so far. Sorry about the fog. It already smells amazing in here. We're just gonna lower the temperature and let this finish cooking. I'm going to add 40 minutes, although I'm going to check it more often than that because I'll be basting it. Oven is off and these are done. I just checked them with the meat thermometer. They're actually coming in about 168. So that's a good temperature. Some beautiful roasted chicken that I'm gonna let cool a little bit, and then I am going to take it out, take all the bones, and make some bone broth. Here's a look at what I got off the leg quarters. The bowl on the left is all the meat and a little bit of meat and some bones that will go into my roasting pan for bone broth. And I got 3 pounds and 29 ounces out of that bag, and I got 4 portions that would go in the freezer vacuum sealed. So in my freezer, I keep a bag all the time of scraps. I just threw in a couple of small onions I was saving from the garden with scraps. These are some small carrots I grew from the garden. I save pieces of garlic after I use it. More garlic. I also have like lots of chunks of celery. This was all the celery leaves from the garden this summer. And what I do is I save all this in a bag, and then when I need it, such as all these I will probably use in the bone broth I'm making, and then this was all stuff I was just going to throw away anyway. So it's a cost-effective way to utilize everything. And I'm going to use this big pile of bones. A bunch of water. That's pretty good. The water. Now I've got all my little scrap bags, so here's a bag of a bunch of garlic skins and the garlic pieces. I've also got a bag of celery. I've got a bunch of baby carrots and some carrot ends from the garden. And then this is all onion chunks, ends of onion peels. Usually put like 2 or 3 bay leaves. I'm adding some whole peppercorn. This is what good peppercorns look like. I'm also using some red mint salt, and I'm just using a very small amount, just like 2 pinches. I plugged it in, I put it on about 200 to start off with. Mix this all around really good. I can probably add a little bit more water, I think. Then what I'll do is I'll put the cover on and I'll let this sit for 24 hours at the minimum. And then I'll be able to scoop out all of the goodies, bones and things like that. Any chicken I missed, I will pick that off. We'll eat it, but then I will make some delicious bone broth in my pressure canner. I lost my footage of straining it, but this is what the bone broth looks like strained after I've gotten everything out of it. I'll be using my pressure canner to warm my jars, so that way I have hot jars for hot liquid, and then I am going to pressure can this in my pressure canner. And when I'm done, I will have a bunch of jars of some more beautiful homemade bone broth made from things that most people just throw away into the trash. So these were quarts, so I did 25 minutes pressure canned, and I got 5 beautiful quarts of gorgeous homemade bone broth. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. And as always, my friends, stay safe and be well.